Hello, Black women. Have you found yourself mourning a version of you that no longer fits? Um, but it still feels hard for you to let her go. Maybe you've outgrown being the strong one. Maybe you've outgrown being the fixer, like me. Maybe you've outgrown being there for people who are never there for you. Maybe you've outgrown being the achiever or the woman who you had to be. Um, but you've lost parts of yourself along the way, or you've grown. Yeah. No one really talks about and allows for these things, but these unique feelings are actually grief. And not just grief for others, but literal grief for yourself. Mhm. The version of you that held it down, the version of you that got you where you are, the version of you that had dreams that did not come true or that changed. Um, Grief for the life that you thought you were going to be living right now. And I know it's grief because I coach clients about it and I lived it and I'm living it. Okay. I have wept deeply for versions of myself that I didn't even like. You know what I mean? Because at least that version of me had a plan. That version of me was innocent. That version of me felt like she was going somewhere. At least that version of me had a title. That version of me had a role. That version of me had a rhythm. Yeah. And letting her go felt like I was coming apart. But here's what I have learned in my 49 big years, okay? Because I just had a birthday recently. Before you fully become who you are meant to be, you have to honor the woman that got you this far, that you were. You have to allow her to grieve. And sometimes you have to actually grieve her and do so without shame. Do so by creating intentional space and do so without rushing through it. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about walking through grief that is real, how grief shows up, and how to give yourself permission to grieve and evolve. Yeah. And create the you that you are becoming. Hello, beautiful Black women, and welcome back to Find Your Light. I am live on Thursday today because tomorrow I'm speaking at or attending the Job Liberation Summit. My session is not until Saturday, but I did not want to miss you guys this week, so I decided to jump on and talk with you. My name is Rashni. I am a content creator, a certified life coach, and a mom to a son with special needs. Okay. I'm also a Black woman healing. I create humor-filled spaces where Black women who feel stuck and hopeless can break cycles, like generational cycles. Okay. Generational patterns, begin healing and create lives that they love. If that is you, you are in the right place. I am live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube and hit the like button on Facebook. Welcome. Wherever you are watching from, drop me a pineapple emoji in the chat and let me know where in the world you are watching from. Hello, Black. I'm going to say, Yaya. I hope I said that right. Hi, thank you for my pineapple emoji. Hello, Natasha Cage. Do you know that Natasha is my middle name? Thank you for the hello and greetings. Natasha has already asked a beautiful question. How do you even know you're going through this process? I'm glad you asked, Natasha. Keep watching and I will talk to you about that very thing. Okay, so in this video, I'm talking to you guys all about grieving who you used to be. I'm going to tell you what inspired this video. We're going to talk about what grief actually is. We're going to talk about specific grief, which is identity grief, which is grieving who you used to be. I'm going to talk about what it means to outgrow yourself. And I'm going to talk about signs that you may actually be experiencing identity grief. And then I'm going to talk to you about how to honor the grief that you may be experiencing and make space for who you are becoming, who you are creating. Oh, okay, I said it right. Watching from New Hampshire. Awesome. Yay. Okay, so let's get started, you guys. First, let me tell you what inspired this video. As you guys can tell, sometimes you get the full happy pineapple version of Rushni, and sometimes you guys get the smooth jazz version. Today, you are getting the smooth jazz version of Rushni. Okay, we'll see how long that this can go. There are, I think, 4 different things that inspired this nuanced video about a very specific type of grief. The first thing is, recently, I asked a loved one who is steeped, from my perspective, in unprocessed grief, right? And exploding on everyone. I asked them if they had ever considered grief counseling, right? Let me not play with the mic, because last time I played with the mic, I actually pulled out the cord and got my sound messed up. Make sure my sound is okay, you guys, let me know. So I recently asked a loved one if they have ever considered grief counseling because they are steeped in grief and spewing just rage and anger all over everyone. And that person responded to me with rage and anger, telling me that they were not grieving. And then they said to me, but you know what is the problem? And went on to describe grief to me in a very angry way. And so I realized that often when we are grieving, we don't even know what grief is, and we don't categorize it as grief. And so that is some of the work that I want to do today. The second reason and inspiration for this video is coaching clients. I am a certified life coach, and I work with Black and West Indian women in group and one-on-one coaching. Okay. And in the coaching, I notice that often clients do not categorize what they are experiencing as grief. They don't categorize their grief as grief. So just like my loved one, when I say, have you considered grief counseling? And they say, I'm not grieving. And then they go on and on about grief. I have coaching clients that I have to help them re-look at what they're experiencing as grief, right? They've lost a relationship. They've lost a career that they wanted, or they don't want it anymore. They've lost a church home. That's a big one. They've lost youth, right? They've lost physical ability, and they've lost a body type, and they aren't categorizing it as grief, right? So that's the second inspiration for this video. The third inspiration for this video is my analytics say that the women that are watching my videos are grieving. Listen, as much as I love to be a happy pineapple, there is a duality to me. There is joy and pain. Okay, like Brother Rabe say, sunshine and rain. And because I am a person who has put up videos about the topic of grief and depression, specifically on YouTube, for a decade plus, over a decade, my analytics says that beyond hair and beauty, which I don't really cover as much as I used to in the past, but that's the big thing you guys are interested in. The second thing that you guys are actually interested in and drawn to is my ability to be transparent and vulnerable and name and give space and containers for the concepts of grief, depression, and loss. And so I felt like this video about a nuanced version of grief would do just that. The fourth inspiration for this video is because I am currently grieving right now. Okay. I am grieving a me that I used to be, and I am grieving a me that I thought I would be. Right. And so this is one of my healing out loud sessions. I'm not some guru talking to you on high, although I may have, more information because I am a coach. Okay. And I am just a lover of resources and finding out that kind of stuff. I'm a healer. However, I'm also living through these types of things right now. And so this is a healing out loud session for me because my life is a continuous a continuous succession of beautiful waves that need to be surfed. Okay. And so I'm living it right now. I want to share with you this idea of liminal space. Octavia Rahim, who is a speaker that I first became familiar with at Exodus Summit a few years ago, wrote a book called Pause, Rest, Be that I recently finished. And in that book, she introduced me to the word liminal and the concept of a liminal space. Okay. A liminal space is defined as a space in between, a position in between, the word liminal. It's a transitional space. It's an ambiguous space. It's often a disorienting space when you are moving from one place that you used to be to a place that you aren't at yet. Yeah. And I loved that word. And when I found out about that word, I fell in love with the way that it could describe the space that I have felt like I was in for so long. A transitional space is like a rite of passage. You're not the old you, but you haven't created or become the new you yet. And my life has often felt like liminal spaces where I'm moving from one thing to the next and haven't actually arrived at that yet. And so, in those liminal spaces, those transition spaces, those ambiguous and often disorienting spaces, you can experience grief, valid, natural, normal grief. So let's talk about what is grief, because I shared with you that a couple of the reasons why I wanted to do this video is because I notice that Black women often have not been given the perspective and vocabulary to categorize the experience they are having as grief. And as I've shared on previous videos, uncategorized things will implode or explode. You either will explode on others, which is what I was sharing with you about the person who was just raging constantly on people with their unprocessed grief, or you implode, which to me is depression, right? Which is what I chose to do. So what is grief, Rashni? Matter of fact, if you're watching right now, define grief for me in the comments, live on Facebook, on YouTube, or on LinkedIn. I'll see if I get a couple definitions before I tell you what my definition of grief is. Tell me what grief is to you. Natasha says that grief is heaviness that won't leave you alone. That's so poetic, Natasha. Thank you. Heaviness that won't leave you alone. Thank you. My definition of grief is a natural reaction to real or perceived loss. To me, grief is a natural reaction to real or perceived loss. Let me put that. I'm putting it in the chat. Right? And I believe that this is part of why we as Black women do not recognize what we are experiencing as grief, because we have been given very specific categories for where grief is allowed, quote unquote, and not allowed. And there is a larger umbrella under which grief, actual or perceived loss, can sit, right? Grief is the process of adjusting to the absence of a thing. Grief is the natural process of adjusting to an absence. You perceived or did have something, and now you perceive that you don't, or you actually don't have it. And it is the process of a thing. Yeah. Grief manifests, that process manifests. Oh, I feel like I have something in my eye. Give me a second while I troubleshoot. That process manifests in many ways, you guys. The way that we're most familiar with is emotional, right? The way that we are quote unquote allowed. And I keep saying quote unquote allowed because when we are trained in this system that we live in, often the agency is externalized to others, even in our experience of grief. What we are allowed to grieve and what we are not allowed to grieve. And that is why I can ask somebody who to me is obviously experiencing loss, real or perceived loss. Oh, okay. Now you guys just saw my janky glasses break. I was about to tell you guys that the frames are broken, but you know what? The beat goes on. Switcheroony. Okay. I was about to say the frames are broken. I hope I don't pop out the lens. And then while I did it, I popped out the lens. But listen, it is what it is. Okay. It's why I can ask somebody who is grieving and they say to me they're not grieving because in their mind, they can only grieve if it is about the death of a person. Yeah. So once again, grief is a natural reaction to real or perceived loss. It is the process of adjusting to the absence of a thing. It manifests in several ways, emotional ways, which is what we're used to. It also manifests in physical ways. It manifests in behavioral ways, choices that you make from the place of grief. And it also manifests in spiritual ways. That is why Natasha so aptly and beautifully and poetically said that grief can feel like a heaviness that won't leave you, right? Grief can feel physical weight. Grief can feel emotional weight, spiritual weight. Heaviness is like a dampening, a depressing. Like I told you guys, it's an implosion, right? And I believe that expression is the opposite of depression. You guys have heard me say that a lot, right? And so I believe that the heaviness, Natasha, is a valid part of moving through adjusting to the absence of a thing. And I believe that the reason why we experience it as something that won't leave is that we have not learned how to give it space, give it room, let grief define more than just the death of a loved one. And we don't know what to do so that it doesn't feel like it won't leave us alone. That's what I'm trying to say. Because the heaviness can come, but eventually you integrate the grief and keep living because there is no life without loss. And so there is no life without grief. And I believe that I heard someone on TikTok once said that what you don't process, you project. What you don't process, you project. And I believe that that's why that grief feeling can often get people stuck, especially us Black women. And we start to explode on others, which is what I was describing to you about the one person, or implode on ourselves. Okay, so today I want to talk specifically about identity grief. I defined grief as the natural reaction to real or perceived loss, right? It is the process of adjusting to an absence. And identity grief is the grief of shedding old versions of yourself, real or perceived, right? The grief of shedding real versions of yourself. The process of adjusting from moving from who you were, who you thought you were, or who you actually were, to who you are becoming, who you are creating. Okay. So let's talk about identity grief and what it means to actually outgrow versions of yourself. What it means to outgrow versions of yourself. So have you outgrown versions of yourself? Put it in the chat for me. What about the achiever version of you? Have you outgrown her? What have you replaced her with? What about the Black excellence version of you? Have you outgrown her? What have you replaced her with? What about the caretaker version of you? The fixer version of you? The people pleaser version of you? What about the strong Black woman version of you? Have you outgrown her? What are you replacing her with? I have some others. Hold on to your horses. What about the mom version of you? My audience is square Gen X. And one of the griefs that nobody talks about, but we are beginning to talk about, and the millennials are coming in strong with me on this, is the grief of anticipating that you were going to be somebody's mother. And then finding out through your unique combination of life events that you are not. That you did not have a baby, that you had a pregnancy and lost it, that your life just did not go the way that you thought the conveyor belt was going to go in the area of motherhood, and you have gotten to your 40s and 50s, and the version of mom, the mom version of you that you were holding on to and that you had envisioned your entire life, you have to grieve her and let her go. Nobody talks about that. What about the Christian version of you? I'm going there. In our current political climate, there is an allegiance and a conflation of Christianity and nationalism that is non-biblical and honestly nauseating from my perspective. To the point that as a person who saw themselves and their identity as Christian for so many years, and who may be in a process of deconstructing or reprocessing the spaces that you allow yourself into because of the spirits that have reared their head, okay? You could legitimately be grieving the Christian version of you. And no one talks about that. No one talks about that. What about the young version of you? Once again, I have a Gen X audience. I have a millennial audience. Aging is no joke. When you are young, aging is coming, but you always think it's going to happen to somebody else and somehow you're going to have an entirely different experience. Boo-boo, you're not, okay? Even if you are a healthy human body, the healthy meat suit that you're in, you're going to see signs of aging. I went to my dermatologist a couple days ago, and even though she assured me that I am not aging like a 49-year-old, okay, she was like, girl, you do not. I've had my dermatologist and my primary care physician both be very vocal about the fact that I am ridiculously youthful in all of the ways. That doesn't mean that changes aren't happening. And there can be legitimate grief that you can hold space for the youthful version of yourself. Okay? Because this thing don't go backwards. We don't go backwards. Time keeps on slipping forward into the future, right? And so holding space for the grief of aging, especially with all the negative messaging that you have to unlearn and detox from to sit in the beautiful season that is getting older, there is a loud grief, identity grief for that. What about the innocent version of you? I have had this. I often long for the innocent version of me that didn't know all of this stuff that I know about healing. Okay, I know too much. And I remember back when I did not know any of this. Now, was I traumatized? Yes. But was I ignorant and just happy as ever in my gleeful ignorance? Yes. I don't want to know all of the parts of the brain and how they affect my nervous system. I don't want to know 8,000 reasons why I have a trauma response and how toxic family systems work and the definition of narcissism and personality disorders. I don't want to. Okay. I have had to I have had to grieve, you guys, the version of me that was innocent, that was clueless, that felt like, it was light work. Okay. If you opened up my head, there was two things bopping around in there, and one of them was a pineapple. I was okay. And that's a legitimate version of grief that you can be experiencing. I know I've experienced it. I'm like, I don't want to know all of this. Okay. No wonder I dissociated as a coping mechanism. Sitting in all of this is a lot. Okay. What about the wife version or the partner version? I spent many years in Christian spaces, Black church spaces, where women, especially Black women, are trained to wait on their Boaz. There is a very specific mindset where when you are not raised in that, it is very interesting that you watch it from the outside in. And so that's how I experienced it, because I didn't come into that space until I was in my 20s, right? And I have watched over the past few decades several women who they didn't get a Boaz. Okay, they were told all the steps to wait, and they had the dream of being a wife in their brain. And now, like I said, they going up there. I know people who are in their 60s, and you are allowed to grieve the wife version of you that you had been waiting on. I don't know. I guess I could, for your life to start. That's what it seems like to me, but I hope that's not what you were doing. But there's a grief there. What about the able-bodied version of you? Okay. Like I said, you can have a healthy meat suit, which is your body. You can have a healthy meat suit, but everyone doesn't make it through this thing able-bodied. Health can deteriorate. There is a lifespan, which is the amount of years that you are alive on the planet, but there's also a health span, right? Which is the amount of years that you are healthy living on this planet. And as we age, especially if you have not taken care of yourself, but it doesn't matter whether you take care of yourself or not, you may now be living in a body that is not as able-bodied or healthy as it used to be. Okay. And this one I want to say, even though this isn't me, I have had this, but I want to give this space because sometimes people don't give this space. It may seem trivial, but what about the pet parent version of you? A lot of times people don't allow for the grief that human beings experience in losing a pet or never having the pet that they wanted to have when they were a child because of trauma. So if that's you, I want you to know that all of those things and more could be valid spaces where you are having a natural reaction to real or perceived loss. And you are grieving, right? Who you used to be, who you thought you were going to be. You thought you were going to be somebody's mommy. You thought you were going to be somebody's wife. You thought you were going to find, you had a dog and it died. You thought you were going to be, a pastor, and now you can't even rock with these people. You thought you were going to be, right? Or you used to be so innocent. You used to have a flat stomach. I'm joking, but I'm not joking. Okay. Perimenopause is out here doing it to my belly. Okay. You used to be able to gather your thoughts. Your hair used to be thicker. Your eyebrows used to be there, right? You had a clearer comprehension of where you were in the world, and now you feel disoriented. These are valid points of grief, and these are grief for the you who you used to be, real or perceived. Okay? We don't just grieve the loss of people, which is what it seems to me that Black women think when I talk to them and they haven't done this kind of work. We grieve past versions of ourselves. We can grieve old dreams that cannot or did not happen because they were time sensitive. We can grieve entire chapters and seasons of our life. Yeah? Signs that you are experiencing grief of who you used to be could be the liminal feeling of feeling lost and disoriented and off because you've left her behind, but you haven't embodied or replaced her with anyone else. Tracy said right here, look, the achiever version of me had a breakdown, okay? And haven't replaced her. She hasn't replaced her. Tracy's saying she's in that in-between space, the liminal space, the beautiful rite of passage, where you are not who you were, but you have not become or created who you're going to be. Okay? One of the things I want you guys to think about as I do the same, I'm doing this work with you guys at the same time, is that liminal space is a beautiful space. Black women, we are told that we got to get on it and we got to know what's next and we got to chop, 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 chop. And I want you to know that the people who are giving you that message, look at their lives. Do you want that? Look at their peace, their levels of peace. Do you want what they have? Check the tree before you pick the fruit, okay? Part of the work you can do when you are grieving who you used to be or who you thought you were going to be is when you realize that you are in the liminal space. You've let go of the achiever. You've let go of the caretaker. You've let to rest the fact that you're going to be somebody's mother or somebody's wife in the way that you thought you were going to be. You realize that your season of youth is over. Your chapter of health or able-bodiedness is over. Black excellence didn't pay off for you the way you thought it was going to. And the innocence is gone. And now you can see life for what it actually is. The blinders are pulled off. You can arrest the messaging, take ownership back on how you perceive it. Okay, I'm going back up to my notes, and honor the in-between and honor the liminal space. Okay, you're not who you were, but you're not who you're going to be. Okay, it's a rite of passage. It's a beautiful in-between. It's ambiguous, it's disorienting, but it's natural and normal. It's you running into the wave to surf it. You haven't gotten up on top of that wave yet, but you're not on the shore anymore. You're not on the shore anymore. Sorry, I felt that. That's for me. And so reassessing choosing to change how you look at the thing, and know that that in-between space is part of the process of grieving, right? Because remember, grief is a natural reaction to real or perceived loss. It is a process of adjusting to the absence. It is a human, natural, real, and allowed, beautiful process, okay, of adjusting to the absence of a thing. And if you don't let the process happen, what you do not process, boo-boo, you will project. And when you project, you wreck, okay? When you project, you wreck. Another sign that you're in identity grief is all your old goals don't excite you anymore. Come on, Black excellence. All your old goals feel like, who wants to do that? I don't want to do that. You was just running. You was Usain Bolton down this conveyor belt. Okay. You about to get that 17th master's degree. Sorry. You about to start the nonprofit. You about to get your suburb job and all of the fixings. Okay. And now you could care less. All right. Every time you pass by a storage facility or a yard sale, all you could think about is selling your condo and moving to Portugal. You don't care. You don't want that job. You don't want it. Okay. That's one of the ways you know you're in identity grief, because your old goals, you don't want it. Some of them things you don't want no more. Okay. The real you starts showing herself. The inner you starts rearing her beautiful head. I'm not going to say ugly head. She starts fighting for the driver's seat of your life. Okay. And she starts telling you, you don't care about that no more. You don't want it. Okay. And that's a valid thing, because that's a loss, right? There was a you that was running to the next graduation ceremony. There was a you that was distracting yourself with checking the boxes of life. And now you don't want to check the boxes of life. You sat down somewhere and realized that you was running, and you did not like where you got. And there's a valid grief there. Another way that you know that you're experiencing identity grief is you start not being able to relate to old habits and even old friends. Old habits or old friends. I told you there's a grief for me about losing some of my innocence. And in graduation season, which we are in, we're literally in graduation season right now. So I'm seeing it right now. It is very common to see all of the pictures of Black women graduating from yet another degree. In the past, I would have came in the comment section and been super congratulatory. I'm still congratulatory, but I can't help to think to myself, why do you need another degree? What you running from? And I'm not saying she's running from anything. I don't know the woman's lives, but it's so common to see that I have found that I don't relate to the Black excellence checkbox type of post that much anymore. And that's a very strong signal that you might be grieving a you that you used to be. Okay. What about you feel like you're floating in between? Like you don't fit in, right? So you haven't found your new spot. You haven't found it yet. You haven't created it or found it. So you can't go back to the space that you used to be in. Let's talk about church. Okay. This is a good one for church. You can't go back to the space you used to be in because you can't. Okay. You know too much about it. You actually read in the Bible and you're like, oh, that's not in there. So now in the spaces you used to feel comfortable, when you go in there, it's 8,000 alarms going off. And you're just like, what? But you haven't found a space to land yet. And so you're in that liminal, right? And you feel like you're floating in between. I want you to know that part of grief is that feeling. Part of grief is, help me God. Part of grief is feeling like no one else has gone through this before. I'm gonna help somebody right now. Everyone else's life is nice and clean and checkboxy, and they are enjoying their perfect little conveyor belt life, and they can go do the thing, but I can't do it anymore because I have lost fill in the blank. I have lost this, that, the other, and nobody understands it. So I've just been ejected out of this experience everyone else is having. And I think that feeling is exacerbated because social media allows us to see everybody's highlight reel. And so human beings have a tendency to compare, and that feeling of being outside of what you thought was normal. Let me tell you something. As a mom of a son with special needs, ain't nothing like this except something happens. We end up in the emergency room or the ICU, and I am inside of a hospital room for days and weeks on end, sleeping in a hospital and not showering for days because the room they have me in doesn't have a shower. So I have to like come home to shower every 2 to 3 days, and getting online and seeing that life continues. There's grief in that, you guys. I just want you guys to hear that. Okay. Another way you can pinpoint that you are feeling identity grief is you feel like you have shed an entire version of yourself. You don't even recognize that girl. What was she doing? I said that to my therapist yesterday. I said, what was I doing? I looked around. Girl, what was I doing? And she was like, doesn't matter. We're here now. I was so confused. Because when I had said the words outside my mouth in English words, I heard me now. Rushni heard me now and described what Rushni was doing and accepting and being and all of that back then. And I didn't even recognize her. And I have not fully created the version of me that I'm becoming. And in that liminal space, not that, this, I'm in the liminal, y'all, I'm in the liminal space right now. Okay. I'm in the liminal space right now. Prayed up and hydrated. I think that this shirt is in my shop.glamazini.com. Okay. I think I put it back out there. If I haven't, I'll put it back out there. I'm in the liminal space right now. Prayed up and hydrated. Let me drop the link. I think it's in the information box. Okay. Confusion about what was going on who I was and why I let that happen and who I am creating. And in that space is valid grief. Why? Because grief is, let me find it again, a natural reaction. I'm going to put it on the screen. Boom. To real or perceived loss. I'm having a natural reaction to who I used to be and being confused by her choices. Okay. And her boundaries. And a girl what? And the process of adjusting to the absence. That's what grief is. Okay. So when I recognize that, that is valid. That is valid. Okay. Blue Isis says cute here. Let me tell y'all something. A few weeks ago, I realized that I was creating a new version of myself. And I realized that the version of me that I was creating has her hair done. And so when I visualized that version of me in the future who had her hair done and was not running all over the place trying to figure out how to get on video, she wasn't doing that. I called my friend Keisha, my kitchen beautician, and I stayed on her books, okay? Because I'm creating me. Amen. Thank you. That's what happened there. And that's what I'm trying to get y'all to understand too. When you hop your butt in the driver's seat of your own life, you can create whatever you want to. And I told you, I'm not telling you this as a guru on high, preaching you like I'm some God. I'm not. I'm living this right now, which is why I shared the hair thing with you. Okay. So what parts of your life do you feel like you're starting to outgrow? Who are you becoming that feels scary and unfamiliar? Tell me in the comments if you're brave. If you don't feel to, you don't have to, okay? But if you're brave enough, share with me what parts of your life are you outgrowing? Who are you becoming that can feel super unfamiliar, okay? And even a little scary. Drop it in the comments. And now I want to talk to you about how to honor grief in all forms, but specifically identity grief, and make space for who you are becoming, who you are creating. Okay? First step, pause. I did a video recently about the pause. I forgot what I called it. Let me see. I'm going to go look right now because it is a useful thing. I think it was last week's video, actually. I believe that the first step of healing is awareness. Awareness. The second step is non-judgment. I'm breaking it down. Yeah. The video before this, when you feel stuck, do this first. The live video right before this on YouTube specifically, because Facebook deletes lives after 30 days. When you feel stuck, do this. That entire video is about creating intentional pauses and ways that you can do it big and small in your life, because you can't heal and create anything without stopping and becoming aware of it. Okay? Aware. Okay? Tissue, how do you say it? Tissue shoe. That's fun. I like that. Okay. I'm becoming avoidant. Like on some, that isn't my business. Now, here's the thing. Avoidant actually has a negative connotation in some psychological spaces. However, everything has a light and a shadow, and even shadow versions of things can be useful to a point, or else they wouldn't have been created. Tissue. What? Girl, wait. What? Wait a minute. Let me get it right. Tissue. Ahoo, girl. Tissue. Oh, that didn't help. Boo-boo. I'm trying though. Help, Jesus. Oh, you said shoe. Okay. Tissue shoe. Tissue shoe? That's what I want to say. Tissue shoe. That's what my brain wants to say. I'm sorry. I don't mean to butcher your name, but I'm trying. Okay. Let's go back to avoidance. A boundary is your yes and your no. It's where you begin and end and where other people begin and end. Sometimes people who had no boundaries because of their own lived experience need to put some boundaries up and become avoidant. Okay? I need you to avoid mess. I need you to avoid negative people who are always dragging you down. I need you to avoid fixed mindset people. I need you to avoid naysayers and people who tell you to stay in harm's way and people who give you bad advice. Okay? So become avoidant because it's really not your business. That's what I was about to put on my other shirt today about the minding your business shirt, shop.glamazini.com. Okay. Part of the reason why a lot of us who were like, I'm not saying this about you, hun, but people, I'm gonna take you off screen. People like me who were fixer healers always trying to be it up in because we were in other people's business. You got to mind your own business. Okay. And take your hand off of it. And learn you're distracting yourself by focusing on trying to fix and heal other people as a way to get love. Okay, I'm telling you my own business. And when you take your hands off, worry about yourself, you might realize that what you are avoiding is feeling and processing your grief. And that was for me. Hopefully you caught it if you caught it. I'm not talking about you specifically, boo-boo. I'm just talking about in general. That is such a predictable pattern, especially in Black women who are celebrated for sacrificing ourselves, checking out entirely from our own bodies, minds, and lives, and becoming servants. And we are celebrated for that sacrifice, packaged in all sorts of ways. When what we are needing at times is space and ritual and practices for grief. I'm sorry, I had to go there. That felt like I had to come out. So I let it come out. Okay. I don't let things stick inside. Okay. Because your silence is killing you. I did a video about that and y'all ain't gonna kill me. Blue Isis says, I'm outgrowing using substances to relax. It's not as appealing to the growing me. Breathing is getting the job done. I don't have to worry about random drug tests. Well, listen. It is very uncommon for Black women to be not embodied. That is why my coaching membership starts with the body, because I was living my entire life neck up and trying to do my healing work from the neck up. There's only so much intellectualization you can do. We are trained to detach from our physicality when the body keeps the score, according to the book, the seminal book by Bessel van der Kolk. Your nervous system is attached to your brain, and your brain is how, if you believe in God or even if you don't believe in God, your brain is how the you, that is the energetic spiritual part of you, is running this whole thing through energy sent through a nervous system. How do I know that? Because I have a son who has a defect in that very system, and I know what happens when it does not work as divinely intended. When we experience traumas, our nervous systems can go haywire as well. And as a valid survival mechanism, because we don't know how to be embodied and to calm ourselves, we don't learn it, we can often go to acceptable ways to cope, and in the physical space that can often look like substances. It can, and listen, I'm not saying that it's the answer, but I'm saying it's a pathway to be explored and curious about. Because as she shared, sometimes the answer you're looking for is how to go back into your body, feel what you have been avoiding, and learn how to control this, like learn what to do with it, right? Learn what to do with it. And we don't get that education, but I'm off that. Okay. If you want to work with me, I got you. Okay. You might not get it out there, but listen, I'm right here. Okay. I heard you looking for me. Here I go. Okay. And even in my coaching membership, last month, I had Candace Mickens come in. She is a somatic healer and a body work. She did a live workshop. Okay. Information, the replay for it. She has 2 videos in my coaching membership right now. I am heavy on getting some understanding of the entire you, the spiritual you that has a soul, which is your mind, your will, your emotions, and your imagination, and your capacity for grief and loss, right? And we live in the meat suit. We live in the body. All of that has to be part of it. So you can outgrow anesthetizing yourself spiritually. I don't know how I got over here, but sometimes when I get to going, I thought I said I was a smooth jazz version of me. Too late now, okay? Sometimes when I get to going, I just have to get it out because it's for somebody, okay? You can anesthetize, you can choose to live your life anesthetizing and detaching from your spiritual needs and your mental needs and your soul needs and your physical needs and your body, your physical body, or you can integrate into the whole thing. You can become whole. You can integrate. That's why I say I help Black women create whole lives that they love. Okay. Natalie says, Natalie, how did I get Natalie out of my natural hue? Girl, what? Being a people pleaser to soothe others' needs while ignoring my well. Let me, you know what? Y'all about to get real personal. Let me see. I have a affirmation personal affirmations that I listen to every single day, every morning. Okay. And listen, I was about to say Natalie again. What is happening? And natural hue, I'm gonna read you. I switch it up for what I need. And I actually used to read it aloud to myself every day. And now I have the Speechify app read it to me, which is why I'm going into here. Let me read this to you. Like I said, this is me healing out loud. I'm scrolling because it's long, but I need to hear it. Okay. I need to hear it. Let me see. I'm trying to find where, you ready for this? This is part of my daily affirmation. Y'all ready for this? Like I said, this is vulnerability. This is truth. But listen, this is what I need to hear. I released the need to manage energy that doesn't belong to me. Oh, and I write it in past tense because I want my brain to think it's already happened. Okay. I'm out here scripting. I want my brain to think it's already happened. I released the need to manage energy that didn't belong to me. I stopped equating emotional labor with love. I honor people's paths without making them my assignment. Come on, people pleasers. It's me right here. I let go of what was never mine to heal. I stopped anchoring myself in dysfunction, and instead I became my own lighthouse. Every time I chose to disengage from misalignment, it brought me deeper into my divine purpose. I trusted my inner knowing to recognize peace. People pleasers, because that's often what's happening. We don't recognize grief. We don't recognize peace. We don't allow ourselves to be human. Okay? I trusted my inner knowing to recognize peace, and I protected it with conviction. I reclaimed my sacred right to create. Okay, because people pleasing and not grieving, all those things are distractions, and they keep you from the creative power and the agency that you have. I chose clarity over confusion. I chose creation over chaos. Okay, all over the building we're standing. I don't know why I had to say that to you guys, because now y'all up in my business. Okay, every day. That's part of what I listen to for the exact same reason. I have to let it go. I have to let it go. I have to let it go. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's go. Kimmy B says, crying last night after watching Forever on Netflix, which I haven't seen, because I was mourning my younger years and the decisions I've made in and out of relationships. My God. Well, my peace. Girl, Kimmy, that's why yesterday in my therapy session, I asked the therapist, what the hell was I doing? I'm sorry, Kim. Girl, that's valid. That's valid. But I'm going to get to it right now. Okay. One of the things I've had to do is treat the youthful version of me wholly, because she didn't know any better, and she got me here now. She got me here now. Give me listen. I'm not going to tell it, but I'm going to tell it. Okay. What was she doing? I said, what? Girl. And the therapist was laughing at me. And I was like, what's happening? Is this what happened when you hit perimenopause? You hit 49 and your brain is like, huh? And is this why the old people to be looking at us when we young and being like skinning up their face? Because what, girl, what? Girl, what? Anyway, focus. Okay. So the first thing you do to honor your identity grief, who you thought you were going to be, who you used to actually be. Like Kimmy said, the you that was making wild and crazy decisions. Okay. The you that was operating from her trauma responses. Mm. She said, I'm still trying to forgive my younger self. Here's the thing. Here's a perspective shift for all of you. I'm not saying you have to do it, but I'm offering it to you. And it has helped me. I don't look at it as forgiving. I do forgive myself. I celebrate the younger me because she got me here. There are women who went through similar things and they imploded or exploded. They are not on a healing journey. They have done zero work, and their trauma has become their testimony. Their stories have become stories of victimhood and harm, and their pain has become their personality. They refuse to process difficult things and instead choose to project and or implode on themselves. And the younger version of me fought to get me here. So I have a tendency to, instead of talking to her crazy like I used to talk to her crazy upside her head. I used to talk to younger me. You know what? I love that. You better celebrate her, because guess what? You would not be able to say, be, do, choose what you are saying, being, and doing and choosing right now if she hadn't fought for you. So she did something. She did something, and there's a future version of you. I feel this, okay? I feel like I'm gonna cry right now. There is a future version of you that you are fighting for now. So whatever wild decisions she made, whatever chaos she accepted, whatever she thought she was going to have or thought she was going to be or was doing what girl was you doing, right? She got you here. And that is worth honoring and celebrating and talking to her nice, okay? So the first step in honoring your grief and besides all the million steps I just gave you guys, and becoming or creating who you are going to be in the future, is to pause, create an intentional stop, an intentional sacred space for you to process and become aware. Don't rush it. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge what you lost. Acknowledge what you are grieving. Many of us are trained to rush the process, to skip over grief to busy work, to skip over grief to go get a degree, to skip over grief to get in a relationship, skip over grief to go just to work in a church. Skip. We don't get, Black women especially. We are told to skip over our grief, and then we see the people who are raging out or having physical illness or falling apart and unraveling because they just are not allowed safe spaces to pause and grieve. Okay. The next thing I want you to do to honor your grief and make space for who you're becoming is to incorporate intentional rituals of grief. Okay. Practices that honor your loss, whatever that looks like for you. So it could be journaling. It could be writing a goodbye letter to the thing that you lost, the version of you that doesn't exist anymore, the version of you that got you where you are right now. Okay. It could be as simple as a ritual of practicing naming it. You may have never even given yourself space to say what you feel like you lost because everyone told you it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't grief. You got to move on, get over it. You know what I mean? Like that happens to everybody. We all getting over what you're talking about. And you over here coming aside, name it. Give yourself space to let it live and have a name. The version of yourself that you were and that you are releasing. Okay. Another thing you could do as a ritual or a practice to honor your grief and to move toward creating in that liminal space who you're becoming is create intentional space for silence, reflection, and some sort of ceremony, something that feels good to you. Like I said, we are trained to be busy, to not feel our feelings. I saw a video on TikTok recently, and the lady basically said that the older Black women that we all know in our life stayed busy working for their men, working in the house and doing everything for their kids because they don't know how to feel their feelings. And that's why they can't sit down. And when you sit down, they get mad. When you rest, they get mad at you. Right. And even though that could have been a survival mechanism for the seasons that they grew up in, you're not in that season. And so if they taught you how to do it, then you are replicating that, and your emotional literacy and capacity is just as stunted as theirs. We all know people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who have the emotional capacity of a 12-year-old. We all know those people. Okay. And those people are buzzing around. I think I did a video recently that said, busyness is not a flex, boo boo. And in that video, I talked about the fact that often Black women, especially, we stay busy. We stay busy because we don't want to stop, because we're afraid of what we're going. I know I didn't want to stop because we're afraid of what we're going to hear in the silence. And let me give you a spoiler. You are right. In the silence, you hear all of the big scary things that you are running from in your head. But once you let those things come up like a spiritual and mental enema, guess what you hear in that silence? You hear the divine. You hear God. You hear yourself. So you're running away from the divine. You're running from yourself. And whose life is it anyway if you're creating a life that doesn't have you in it? Another way that you can honor your grief and make space for the you that you are creating, the you that you are becoming, is to get into supportive spaces that honor your grief, that honor your loss, okay? That allow you time to adjust to the absence. And those spaces are not naturally going to come to you, especially if you are a person that does not honor grief. You probably learned how to not from unhealthy people who don't. And if you keep going back to a poison well that taught you how to be poisoned, you're going to get poisoned again. The people who gave you the poor pattern, the unhealthy pattern, are not going to give you the healing for the pattern. You got to go somewhere else, boopy. Listen, you got to go somewhere else. Hello? And find supportive spaces that honor your loss and the process of adjusting to the absence, which is a normal process in a lived life. There is no life without grief. And then you can process and not project, right? You can integrate, fold the grief in to your life, and it becomes one of the threads. It doesn't go away. It becomes integrate. Let me give all the hand motions. Okay. I'm a dancer, so y'all know y'all gonna get a lot of this. Okay. Integrate. The grief becomes one of the threads in your one unique patchwork quilt of a life. You got to get in those spaces. Okay. Kimmy B says, what are you doing? What you are doing is the Lord's work. I'm so inspired by you. Oh, thanks, Kimmy. I didn't know that's what I was putting up on screen. Still learning and growing, and my big age, and tears are cathartic. Absolutely. And when they test y'all know I'm gonna come with some nerdiness. When they test the chemical composition of tears, there is and sweat, bodily fluids in general. Well, let's stay with tears. They can test the chemical composition of tears of sorrow and grief and tears of joy. And there are different chemicals in those tears, meaning the physical body needs to expel something for some reason that we don't understand. The designer of the body understands it. And when you block those things, you back up. Sorry, the version I learned me came in. What do y'all call it up here when you back up? Constipated. I couldn't think of the word. You are spiritually constipated. So let those tears flow, because the tears got to come out. You've been a follower since Flickerbug was born. Oh, girl, he about to be 13. Girl, he got a little mustache and his voice is deep. I don't want to talk about it. He about to be 13 next month. I am traumatized. I don't want to talk about it. Y'all pray for me. Okay. Y'all pray for me. You love the idea of making this ceremonial. Absolutely. Indigenous spaces hold more opportunity, create more opportunity for grief to be honored. We lose it when we come to this westernized society where it's an individual mind, a get over it, a keep going because you're capital in a capitalist society and the entire point is make money. Who cares if you lost anything? Okay. Reclaiming your actual natural capacity to mourn who you were and then sit in the liminal as you create the new you deserves some sort of packaging around it, in my estimation. And I am a very symbol person, as you guys can see by pineapples and Ursula and everything. Okay, pineapples are a symbol of my joy. I let things have space. And like I told you, for the people who tell me that what I'm doing is childlike or what I'm doing I don't take all that, I look at their spiritual, emotional, mental, relational health, life health, and I decide whether I want to take advice from them. I check the tree before I pick the fruit. And if they do not have or have never created what I want, I smile at them. And like my pastors told me, God rest her soul, I wink at the wall and I keep moving. I don't even tell them I'm not taking their advice, because why would I pick off of your tree? I don't want that. Anyway, okay. Kimmy said, my soul, I walked away from a relationship after meditation and prayer and listened to the voice of God. And this following my previous marriage to a malignant narcissist. Listen, I'm not going to go into all of it, okay? But let me tell you what, I am very versed in my world about the concepts of personality disorders. I've learned so much. That's why I told you I'm mourning, and I still am. I've done a lot of work in this space, but I'm still mourning, Kimmy. I'm not going to lie. I am mourning the innocence of a Rushni that did not know what the DSM-5 was. I had no capacity to understand any of these disordered ways. I didn't know. Okay. And even though that version of me was steeped in her own trauma responses, I have mourned and continue to mourn. I'm not joking. Okay. And that's why I'm saying these things aloud, so that you, if not you, just Kimmy, but anyone listening, can be given a possibility model and allowed, possibly for the first time, to grieve a valid feeling of loss. I wish I didn't know all of the narcissistic family systems. I wish I didn't know it, but I do. Okay. And I'm right in there. If you look in the book, I'm in there. I'm not the narcissist role. Thank God. I've checked with lots of people, professionals, but I'm in one of the roles. Okay. It's me right there. And I'm just like, I don't want to know that. Okay. I don't want to know that. Okay. I'm going through the comments. Y'all say stop 13. Voice deep, y'all. Listen, I'm going to say this and I'm going to move on. You know, another thing of grief, being a special needs mom, thinking that you're going to have 2.5 healthy kids and having to live an entire different thing. You get to feel grief about a perceived loss. That doesn't make me not love my son. I love my son. He's amazing. He's the most beautiful, wonderful, hardest, amazing, just glorious, sunshiny thing I've ever gotten the opportunity to do in this life. Okay. And I just like his little personality. He's just a good time. And I get to grieve that. Both things can be true. Okay, so let's wrap it up. I want to reiterate that you are allowed to grieve versions of yourself that helped keep you alive. You are allowed to grieve versions of yourself that made poor decisions. You're allowed to grieve versions of yourself that thought she wanted to be a lawyer, but now she don't want to. And versions of yourself that were going down the Black excellence check boxes, and now you realize you're unfulfilled. And versions of yourself that you feel squandered youth and squandered money and jacked up your credit score and spent too much time in a relationship with and up inside of a church you found out was a cult, and right? You get to grieve her, but you also get to celebrate her because she kept you alive and she got you to where you are now, right? Blessings and abundance to the woman that I used to be. And I welcome the Rushni that I am becoming. And now let me share some resources, 3 resources for you. I am speaking at the Job Liberation Summit Virtual Summit for Black women this weekend. It starts tomorrow. Yeah, May 16th. I don't know when they stop being able to do tickets. Oh, I forgot that this doesn't have a space in it. I'm dropping it in the comments. It's also in the information box of the video wherever you're watching. Let me drop a new comment with a space on the link, bit.ly/Job Liberation Summit 2025 is the link for you to sign up. My specific talk is on Saturday. Let's see, the summit is tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. If you are a Black woman experiencing a toxic job environment, you can come. They allow you to be anonymous. So click the link and get in there. You can change your name and everything. You don't even have to be in there. Nobody need to know you in there getting all this information. 3 solid days of Black women speakers helping you liberate yourself from toxic job environments. And as a toxic job survivor, trust me, if I had something like this, I could have gotten free earlier. My specific talk is about visioning your liberation. It is about desire and permission. And if you like this kind of video, it is this, except about helping you identify what you want and helping you take back your agency so you can actually create it. Link is on the screen. The next thing I want to tell you about is you can work with me. I do group and one-on-one coaching. My group coaching is totally reimagined. Okay. I did it for a year. I've done it actually for 8 years on and off, but last year I started it and I revamped it to what I'm calling my How to Heal framework. You heard me say earlier that my entire coaching membership framework, words, Rashni, let's get the words, starts with the body. The first month is all about creating your foundation, feelings of safety in the body, finding your voice, and creating space for grief, which is what we're talking about. And then we go on to self-concept, and then we go on to systems to help you create the life that you want. And then we go on to legacy and designing your actual life. Okay. If you want to work with me in a group coaching capacity, as well as get bevies of resources and information that I have learned by busting my head, okay, on the way, thepineapplecrowns.com. Sign up for the group coaching membership. We have monthly live Zoom calls. You will get access to the How to Heal framework. You will get access to the healing resource library. And we have, you heard me say we had a live coaching session with a somatic body healer before that. I have had other guest coach come in and talk about identity work. I've had other guest coach come in and talk about narcissism and the mother wound. I've had guest coach talk about friendship experts who have had TED Talks and best-selling books, thepineapplecrowns.com. And the last thing that I want to tell you is also at the same link, thepineapplecrowns.com, I am working on adding more one-on-one coaching packages. Okay. I only had a 3-month package out there that was 6 calls. I've decided to add a 1 month and a 2 months, and I'm working on it. So if you are interested, just give me a second. I'm almost finished. thepineapplecrowns.com. I'm going to finish working on that today. And you want to work with me one-on-one, you can do so at the same link. Okay. And those are the resources that I wanted to help share with you guys. Don't forget, you are allowed to process, not only allowed, you should, not should, you could, to be a healthy, healing Black woman that is creating the life that she wants. That's what I want to say. Okay. Make space to process the real or perceived loss of the versions of you that you were, so that you don't feel stuck and so that you can move on to creating the you that you want to be. Be well, you guys. Be encouraged. I can't believe my lens flew out. Who was here since the lens flew out? Here's a pineapple. All right. Bye, y'all.